the objectives
Meeting
for.
is being recorded.
Excellent. We're recording. So let me go back up real quick. Again, James Powell, Manager of Testing and Proctoring Center. And we're very excited to be talking about test taking strategies. Our objectives are to talk about how to prepare for an upcoming test. We're going to talk about time management. All right. There's going to be strategies actually within the process of taking a test that can help you in a situation where you have limited time, which is to say practically every test you'll ever take in college. The third one is going to be test taking itself. How do you look at question types? How do you look at answer types? How do you recognize the ones that are the most common that are found in multiple choice tests, especially, and then be able to handle them appropriately? My button is saying I need to refresh PowerPoint, which doesn't sound good. Does everybody, can anyone, I guess we got kicked out of that. So we will go to our backup. So Ms. Seegers, do you mind pulling up my PowerPoint for me, please?
Sure, I have it up. Give me
Thank you
one
so
second. Here it
much.
goes,
And you can
and
go
I
ahead
will
and
share.
share whenever you're ready.
Sure.
So how many people are in an MBA program? Because I did an MBA myself. Anyone in an MBA program? Go ahead and do a virtual raising of your hands if you want to. All right. I learned a lot in my MBA program. It was pretty, thank you, Emily. I see your hand. It was pretty wild. Lots of case studies, lots of diving into a deep understanding of a case and a scenario and situations. That's not going to be true for everyone, but that was true for me when I did my MBA. And so I'll incorporate some of those ideas as well. So to continue, we talked about those four things. So Ms. Seegers, if you could go to the next slide.
Sure.
This is why we have redundant systems, so that if one fails, the other immediately clicks on. So the power of cooperation. First things first, preparation is key. So we're talking game day, right? Test day. You've got to make sure that the night before you're doing all the things to make sure your health triangle is in full operation. Sleep well the night before, eat a good breakfast, make sure you got some protein in there to give you true energy. On a study skills note, make sure to actually quiz yourself or even test yourself in a circumstance that's very similar to the test. Some of what I do is test preparation, and those things are 3-4 hours. We're talking GRE. Anybody take the GRE? Raise your hand if you took the GRE to get into grad school. Right? Probably everybody. Maybe as we move into the new age, there's fewer and fewer people, but most of you had to take the GRE, and those things you've got to accommodate for what your test is going to be like. So for that test, it's 4 hours. So you would want to do, for example, the week before, a 4-hour session where you practice the GRE. So in the same way, if your test is, I don't know, essay format, 3 questions for 3 hours, you may want to practice taking a single question and spending an hour on it, because that's the format of the test. So test yourself specifically in similar circumstances before the test. We've talked a little bit about self-care. That can mean physical, getting yourself some exercise, making sure to not just do the mental, but the physical as well. Mental, yes, take time out to take a break, do something fun. Don't make it all about the work. And social, make sure you're connecting with people who you care about and who care about you. That way you're going to feel boosted up, ready to go. Another thing I like to advise is visiting the site or location beforehand. Some of you may be going off campus. Some of you may be going to a new building, depending on your testing environment. Probably most of you are going to the same room that you've always been going to, in which case, check, done. Focus on the other 6 things or 5 things. But for those of you who have to go take your final exam at a different location due to 25 Live, our internal system for booking rooms, you may want to go check it out, because the more familiar you are with the place you're going to test, the better off you're going to feel. And some of it's psychological, let's be honest. So psychologically, you're going to be like, I've been here, I've done that. I know where the chalkboard is. I know where my seat is. I've picked out, a particular one I want to sit in. I'm going to come here early, pick out my spot. You can feel a sense of ownership when you do that. Next slide, please. A lot of people talk to me about test anxiety. Anybody have test anxiety? Feel free to raise a virtual hand. Show me your
Or you
show me
can
your
thumbs
hand,
up.
what you feel. Or give me a thumbs up. Yep. I see all of your thumbs ups. Yeah, this is a big deal, right? This is a big deal. So how do we deal with stress? Here are 8 ideas. Wow, that was an explosive thumbs up. Thank you. That's like 10 thumbs up in one. Boom. The first thing is positive self-talk. I got this. I studied hard for this. Now, the corollary to that is you better study hard for this, right? You can't not study for something and give yourself that, hey, I got this mentality. What I'm saying is we cannot birth things straight up from our mental, right? We have to do the hard work. But if you've done the hard work, you can go into your test saying, hey, I did study hard for this. I deserve to do well on this, and I got this. The second thing is those deep, belly breathing, the cleansing breath, holding it for 4 seconds. So that means inhaling for 4 seconds, holding it for 4 seconds, and then exhaling for 4 seconds. That slow, deep breath allows you to overcome stress a lot of times. So again, it's that physical, mental connection. Another one is going back to mental, you can center yourself. That can be many ways, but one way is to retrieve a mental happy place. So I've got children, so I might think of my youngest child, my 7-year-old, think about her smiling face, think about how cute she is, think about how much she loves me and hugs me, and be like, that's my happy place. And every time I start to feel that stress start bubbling up, I go back to that little 7-year-old and I go, that's a good place to be. I'm smiling just thinking about it right now. So any place where you can smile just thinking about it, capture that memory and bring it with you to the test. I've mentioned this already, but the fourth one is to arrive early, walk around, get to know the room. That's going to, by definition, reduce your stress because you know where the bathroom is, right? You know what the hallway looks like. You know what the room looks like. You're not walking in for the first time, absorbing new information, right? Is that not stressful? How many of us go into a social situation and we don't know what the room looks like, and you walk in and you're like overwhelmed? Anybody feel that way? That's why we arrive early. That's why we scope out the room before test day ever even arrives. The fifth one is in your bottom left of your screen. Befriend your fight or flight response. That means I'm going to recognize it, right? I'm going to acknowledge that it does exist. I'm not going to pretend like it doesn't exist. I'm going to acknowledge that, yes, there's a piece of me that is a bit nervous. But I'm also going to then, by recognizing, know that I need to take action. I need to calm myself down. See above, right? Positive self-talk, deep belly breaths, going to my happy place, all those things. The sixth one is focusing on answering the questions. That means don't be distracted. So anything that's a distraction to you, close it off. And again, this goes hand in hand with practicing your environment before test day, at home, in your apartment, in your home, in your house, wherever you live. That means you're going to be heads down, right? You're not going to be looking up and wondering, oh, what's in the pantry that I could snack on? You're not going to be wonder what's on TV. You're not going to be, oh, it looks pretty outside. Maybe I'll go out for a little walk later. You're not going to do any of those things. Therefore, on test day, you're not going to look up and go, I wonder what that noise was. You're not going to look to your left and go, I wonder if that person's going to do better than I am. They sure do look smart. They look pretty confident. You don't want to do that, which goes to our next point. Do not focus on how well or poorly you are doing in the moment of the exam, and do not focus on what others are doing. That first piece of it is very important. It means that you don't self-analyze in the moment. Don't get meta on me, right? Don't think about the thinking. Don't process the test while you're trying to take the test. Too many things. 2 is too many. Focus on 1. The one thing is take the test and do the very best you can. So those go hand in hand. The eighth and final recommendation I have for you is just have some perspective. I know it's grad school. I've been there twice. Not bragging, but I'm patting myself on the back right now. But have perspective. This one quiz, this one test, even this one midterm, even this one final is not life or death. It might feel that way, but it is not. Think of it as a momentary point in time that indicates how well or how poorly I have understood what the instructor wanted me to know. And that's it. Man, I tell you, I worked hard in my MBA program. I got me a nice old 3.9 GPA. And I thought, wow, okay, I worked hard for that 3.9. Do you want to know how many jobs that 3.9 mattered? Probably one. The first one, right? Got out of my MBA, got one job. That first job, they cared. Do you think any of my subsequent employers cared about my GPA? Probably not a lick. All right. Anybody been in recruiting? Anybody been in HR? Anybody worked in that field? If you've worked in that field, you know what I'm talking about. They don't spend more than a few seconds looking at your educational background. They don't care. They care about your work experience. Okay. That's what counts. So don't get hung up on your GPA, because I spent 2 years getting hung up on my GPA. It didn't help me worth a lick. I don't want you to fall into that same trap. Ms. Seegers, can we hook up with the next slide, please? Okay. You guys ready to start cooking? Let's turn on the fire. Let's start getting the pot on the thing, and let's start cooking. So general strategies. Here we go. We dive into the test taking now. The first one is to read each question carefully and thoroughly. Okay. The second one is to keep in mind that you have to have an open mind as you read them. The reason why is because a question, assuming it's a long multiple choice test, can actually jog your memory, right? Have you ever done that? You've been in a test, and I don't know, it's a midterm, so it's covering a lot of stuff, and you read a question and you're like, oh, yeah, that thing on, you're on question 20. That relates to question 3. I need to go back and check question 3. And everybody been there or done that? That's what we call triggering your knowledge about another test item. So keep an open mind. Also, work that sheet of paper. Okay. I always like to say, use the paper that's in front of you. I know it's blank. Then you got to fill it up, right? You don't get to start off with a cheat sheet. Most people don't. So if it's a blank sheet of paper, fill that thing up. What do you fill it up with? This kind of stuff. I see question 20. It reminds me of question 3. Therefore, I'm going to start writing down the things that it reminds me of, so that later, when I'm checking back my work, I can go back to question 3 and go, that thing I remembered from question 20, I'm now going to apply, and maybe it'll help me get 3 right when I would have gotten it wrong. The third one in red here is, before answering, look at the answer choices. Because if you miss one of them, you actually might miss the one that's correct. So I definitely do not advise, just jumping to the one thing that you think is right and then moving on. That's generally not advisable. There are always exceptions, and I'm not going to talk about those exceptions because I want to talk about what's going to be true for most people. All right. But just know everything is customized. I know you're a unique individual, but for most people, that's not the right way to go. You want to scan all of the answer choices. The final thing is, it is not a race to the finish. Use the time you're given. If you've been given 50 minutes, use 50 minutes, right? Unless you got someplace better to go. I mean, where else are you going to go, right? Unless you got some kind of doctor's appointment and you're about to bleed out, sure. But otherwise, use the time you have, because they gave you that time. So use it. Next slide, please. Let me pause for a moment. Are there any questions so far in my presentation? No questions? All right. If you feel like you're vibing with this, if you're understanding, if you feel like it's good, give me a hand clap. Let me see what you think. Anybody feeling good about this? Let's see your hand clap. All right. Thank you, Malia. Thank you, Allegra. I see that. Thank you, Sharon. Whoa, I got an explosive July 4th one. I love it. All right, so you guys are vibing with me. Let's go. Let's keep going. Stay focused, all right? I know it's hard, but stay focused. I know it's late. It's a late night, but I'm proud of y'all for being here. How are multiple choice tests different? Well, number one, they're very often not based on just a recognition of basic ideas. Sometimes they are, but we're in grad school, so they're raising the bar, right? A lot of times it's not going to just be, oh, easy peasy. It's just this answer, so simple. Oftentimes, on the right hand side, they often require you to reason through a problem, oftentimes using the course material. Again, I go back to almost the first thing I ever said, which is, yeah, you can go in with positive self talk, but you better have done the work, right? You got to back it up with your work. So if you've done the work, that's when it kicks in, because these questions are not easy. These tests are not easy. You need to know the material. Let's go to the next slide, please. So what does this mean? And we're just focusing on multiple choice for the moment. It's going to be the bulk of what we do, but I will address essays. The first thing is to understand material thoroughly. We've talked about that. The second recommendation is always to define terms. Okay. So this is very true for any area that you go into, because I'm sure that if you start talking like you talk with your other majors, other people in your grad school program, I will be lost unless you're in an MBA program or you're speaking in French. Then I'll say merci beaucoup and I'll be ready to go. But otherwise, I'm sure if you talk in the language of your grad school, there's nobody else in other grad programs who understand what you're saying, right? If I throw out my SWOT analysis and my interest rate this and all this kind of stuff, you're not going to know what I'm talking about. Just like if you talk about your stuff, I'm not going to know. So you have to define terms, because that's what grad school is about. It's about having specialized knowledge. So you best darn well understand those very specific terms that are unique to your program, right? So you need to have a very strong graduate school specific vocabulary. Let me put it that way. So that if someone is outside of your program, you should be able to speak as if they cannot understand you, like you are speaking French. The third thing is analyze those items. Don't just know what it means. Don't just know what SWOT means, but I need to understand what it stands for and what each of those four things represents in various categories, right? That comes into applying the information. So to give that example again, SWOT is a very common MBA term. It means it's an acronym, SWOT. Very simple, not rocket science. It stands for strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. But that's not enough, right? I have to have a deep understanding of what each of those things are. That's the analyze. Then there's the apply. I need to apply that. I need to apply that to a lot of different scenarios, whether my professor told me to or not, right? Maybe my professor gave me the example of ice cream shops. So I'm looking at the strengths and weaknesses of Ben and Jerry's in Winston-Salem. I'm looking at the opportunities that Ben and Jerry's has. And I'm looking at the threats to Ben and Jerry's. What might usurp their power? Maybe it's the onset of drones dropping off ice creams from Amazon, right? Like we're thinking about the future. So I have to apply it. That's the professor's example. But guess what? It doesn't stop there. I got to apply it to other industries. I can't just say, oh, now I know the ice cream thing. I'm done. I just wipe my hands off. I'm finished, right? I don't need to study. I get it. No, 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 no. You better apply that to other scenarios. What about non-food product related industries? What about IT industries? What about healthcare industries? What about ... Get out of the food business. What about other industries? Did the professor ask me to? No. But should I be applying it? Yes, I should. Do y'all see how this works? And then thinking critically, obviously, these are all seamless. They're not unique and individual. They all blend together. It's just another level. How am I critically analyzing this information, right? Maybe my professor gave the example of Ben and Jerry's. Maybe that's all they said, right? They just gave me the quick analysis. Well, you best believe that I'm gonna go home And during my study time, I am going to think critically. What other things did my professor not say about Ben and Jerry's that I now have to research, develop, consider, thoughtfully process, take notes on, write lists of? Because believe me, he probably just threw it out there. It might be Amazon drones. He's probably joking. But then I have to say, well, hold up. That might be real. How real could that be? And if that's not real, what are the real threats? Do you see what I'm saying? I'm trying to deep dive you so that you can understand from one example how you can then extrapolate to your own grad school program, right? You're not going to be talking about SWATs. You're not going to be talking about Ben and Jerry's. I'm going to be talking about that. But you can extrapolate my example to your own grad program. We good? Let's go on to the next slide, please. So what we're talking about is just another way to say it. You got knowledge. That's one fact that'll answer the question. I'm telling you right now, probably not going to happen too much. But if it is, you got lucky. Interpretation, that's two facts or pieces of information that I now need to blend together, right? That's SWOT analysis plus IT industry. Oops, I didn't do that. I didn't study that. Wait a second, you never talked about that. Yeah, but we expect you to critically analyze. We expect you to interpret. So then again, that might be a next level. And then evaluation, well, that might be 3 or more facts or pieces of information needed to answer the question. Now we talking apply the SWOT analysis. Okay, that's step 1, ... to the IT industry. That's step 2, ... using the financial principles of time value of money, ... Do you see what I'm saying? Predicting the valuation of a company in 10 years, number 4. So you see how you can blend all the things, and you have to grab here from financial management, grab here from marketing, grab here from strategic management, and blend them together in a nice little blender and make yourself a nice little coffee, yummy, juicy deliciousness. But they're not going to blend it for you. They're going to give you the ingredients, but you better know how to blend, all right? Practice your blender. I just made that up, but sounds kind of cool. Next slide, please. Yeah, that's right. I'm making stuff up all over the place because we're building the plane while we're flying it. All right. What about essay-based tests, right? Thank you for the laughs. What about essay-based tests? Let me get a show of hands. Anybody want to do a hand clap or a hand raise to say, yeah, most of my tests I think are going to be essay-based. Anybody believe that? Y'all with me? Raise your hand if you're like, I think I'm going to be doing essay-based questions. All right, Malia, I see you. So for Malia's benefit, we're going to go through this slide right here. What about these essay-based questions? Well, first of all, I would say know whether it's full versus partial credit, right? You can ask your instructor in advance. If they don't answer, it's probably because they're not sure, because they're sometimes flying the plane while they're building it. So they might need time to create their midterm. Maybe they're a new professor, right? Maybe they haven't been here 10 years. They might need time to create their final exam. Maybe they're still tinkering. Maybe they're still figuring it out. I'm not sure what I want to do. But at some point, they're probably going to be able to tell you. And at the last resort, it should probably be stated on the test itself. But really, connect with your instructor. There's no need to be shy. They should tell you. And that tells you a lot, right? If it's full or partial credit, meaning is it going to be all or nothing? Or are you going to give me partial credit for writing down some things? That's two very different approaches. The partial credit, the full credit just means either you get it or you don't. So there's not much to say there. The partial credit is, you know what? You can write some things down. It's probably, I'll assess it and I'll give you a rating, between 1 to 10 is how well you answer the question. So there's going to be what's called granularity, right? There's going to be gradations to how much credit you get. And that's very meaningful. What I like to say for that is go ahead and give the things you know, even if you don't fully understand. Look, if you fully understand the question, you can fully answer it. I got no advice for you. Good job. You're an A student. But if you're struggling and you're like, I'm not sure exactly what this is, then you want to outline, right? You want to jot down some notes. What do I know about the subject? How could it connect? How could it interrelate? And so create an outline first and then create your best argument. What I would disadvise, meaning please do not do this, I would disadvise droning on and on. Okay. This is the habits of the desperate. Okay. This is if you are feeling desperate, you're going to just start pouring out your soul, hoping and praying that you hit on something, anything that gets close to the subject matter. Don't do that, because if it looks like desperation and if it smells like desperation, your instructor will know that it is desperation. Okay. So don't be desperate. Don't write desperately. Have a plan, have an outline, give it your best shot, and only talk about things that are relevant. Don't do the rapid fire M16. I'm going to just spray it with all kind of stuff. Nobody wants you to spray them with all kinds of stuff in more ways than one. So don't do that. Give them the best shot that you got to get the answer as good as you possibly can. And if there's relevant stuff, you can also say that, but you better have a good reason for it. Number 2, what verb is used in the essay question? That's going to say a lot, because it's going to give you a proper target in order to aim for. This goes hand in hand with making sure you're answering the question being asked, right? Sometimes, not me, but other people, right? Sometimes other people will jump to conclusions, meaning they will think that something is being asked because you're nervous, you're anxious, it's a big test. Of course, I get it. So be careful that you don't fall in that trap. Be careful that you read the question in its entirety, right? And don't just start writing, right? Do not just start, okay, well, man, time's ticking. Let's go. It's go time. Not necessarily. It's outline time. It's make a plan time. It's not writing time yet. Give yourself a little bit of time to make a plan. And that leads into the third one, scan and plan. So you should, at the beginning, notice how many questions there are in the entirety of the test. You should assess their nature, right? It could be a few short answers. It could be long essay. How much empty space did the instructor leave? That's a clue, right? What is the point value of each question? All these make a difference. So I would then do quick math to estimate the time you could dedicate per question. Listen, is math not your strong suit? Anybody where math I'm not that good at, you can raise your hand. Okay, Ms. Seegers, I see your hand. That's what we call honesty. I like that. If you're not good at math, don't worry about it. Just divide your paper into, okay, well, this sheet of paper, that's one sheet. Okay, just divide the number of times, right? I got 60 minutes. I got 4 sheets of paper, 15 minutes a sheet, right? So that's an easy way if you just are really bad at math. If you're pretty good at math, then you know what I'm talking about. You can take your point totals. You can divide it out. You can understand 10 points out of 100 is 10% of my test. 30 points out of 100 is 30% of my test. You can do the math. So either way, whether you're bad at math or good at math, you got a way to quickly estimate the time you should allocate to each question. Let's go to the next one, please. So what verb is used in the essay? That's a good question. And Mr. Powell, what in the world do you mean by that? That's another good question. Let's kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You want to focus on the verb used in the question itself. So if they say, for example, I want you to analyze the ... Ask yourself what that means. If they say, I would like you to compare ... and ... Stop and think about what compare means and make sure you are doing it, right? If they say, I would like you to contrast. Again, I've given you the answer key here. It means I want you to show me the differences between 2 or more concepts or ideas. So you best believe before you start writing, I want to see a left column and I want to see a right column. And those 2 columns better show some differences. You get my drift? Critique. That means I want you to assess the validity. I want you to judge and analyze, right? I want you to dig into the logic of this. Where is it logical? Where is it illogical? I want you to critique. Do you see how different these are? Y'all seeing the power of this? I want you to define. Now, obviously, this is going to be probably short essay, right? They're not going to ask you to define for 2 hours, but they're going to ask you to define for like 5 minutes. So you might have a series of 10 quick, short answer, 5 pointers, right? Little quick hits. So you might have to define this term, define that time, define SWOT analysis, right? But let's just say they said, define SWOT analysis. And they had a big old number of points, like 50 points out of the 200. And that's it. There's like 4 questions. Guess what I'll be doing? I'll be talking about Ben and Jerry's. I'll be talking about IT. I'll be talking about universities. I'll be talking about all kind of things. Because you know the professor wants 30 minutes worth of your best definition of SWOT. Not your 5-minute definition of SWOT. Now they're looking for your 30-minute definition, right? So you can actually determine the relative importance of questions just based on how an instructor has carved up their whole exam. You get my drift? Now that's going to be rare and far, it's going to be rare to see that. But I'm just telling you now, you can adjust your strategy, right? You can see if it's going to be a 5-pointer or a 50-pointer, and you can adjust accordingly. All right, discuss, explain, illustrate, prove, summarize. These are just some examples, just to give you an idea. Let's go ahead and move on. All right, Malia, did that answer your question? I think it's Malia. Did that help you at all? You could come off mute. You can do a hand clap, or you could ignore me. Remind me of my dating days. Thank you, Malia. All right, let's talk about time management. Let's go to the next slide, please. Time management. Now, I'm not going to hit you with the Pomodoro technique. I'm not going to hit you with the time blocking. Don't worry. We're not talking about study skills time management, which I could dedicate a whole hour on. We're talking about time management as it pertains to test preparation. So, what do? First of all, have a strategy. The second of all, you want to start with the easy questions first. Now, again, you might say, hey, Mr. Powell, I'm different. I'm unique. I'm this, that, I'm the other. I get it. This is not necessarily for every single person because everyone's an individual. But for the most part, right? Most people should do this. Why? Why is this important to do? Number one, it raises your confidence level. It gives you a quick start. Number two, it allows you to settle down. We talk about test anxiety. Do you want your anxiety to increase or decrease? Can I hear decrease, right? Number three, it ensures very quickly that you are getting credit for what you know. Because if you don't do it this way, you got 50 questions. You only got to question 38. Time ran out. Canvas shut you down. And now you got no more time and you got no way to get back in the test. It's over. And you did not answer 12 questions. Oops. What if you could have got question 40, 44, and 46 correct in 30 seconds each? Then you missed out, man. You missed out. So don't miss out. Let's go to the next slide, please. All right, what other strategies do we have? Well, when it comes to time management, you're going to preview like we've talked about. You're going to take note of those easy questions. And then I strongly recommend you jot down notes or formulas, quote unquote, in the margins. This means if you have a sheet of paper, you can do it. But if it's a paper test, you can write in the margins. If it is on Canvas or on the computer, which it probably is, use that blank sheet of paper that your instructor gave you and do that memory dump, right? Remember how we talked about triggering ideas, triggering this, triggering that? If you get triggered in a good way, then write down the things that you got triggered on and dump down the things you remember because it is already giving you that head start. So just go ahead and let it go where it leads. Do not spend too much time, right? Don't go into the rabbit hole of now I'm spending 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes. Do it for like 1 minute and then move on. Number 4, calculate how much time you have per question. The response to that is, well, what if I exceed that time? I wouldn't worry too much about that. Excuse me, still getting over a cough. But that's why you do the easy questions first, because you're very unlikely to exceed the time on an easy question. You are highly likely to exceed the time on a hard question. Would you not agree? We've all been there, right? Man, I shouldn't have spent 6 minutes on that last question, or not the last. I shouldn't have spent, 6, 7 minutes on question 38, but I done did it. And my time ran out and I stopped that question 38 on a 50 question test. You're only going to exceed that time if you are not doing what I talked about, which is to aim for the easy stuff first. If you get hooked on a hard question and you get locked in and you believe you're in, to use an 80s reference, Mortal Kombat, that's where you get caught. Don't get caught in Mortal Kombat. Okay. There's no Kano. There's no Raiden up in here. So don't do that. Okay. I'm going to show my age by talking about Mortal Kombat of all things. Whew. Somebody tell me to tone my creativity down. Strategy number 3. We got a few more strategies. Set your goals, right? We talked a little bit about that. Allocate the time relative to the value. I talked about that. Save more time for questions worth more points. We talked about that. Pace yourself. I implied that. It isn't a race. So if person B to your right gets up with a lot of authority and panache, strolls on over to the instructor and slaps down that test with a lot of noise, don't worry. It's okay. They probably bombed it. It's all good. Number 6, know your strengths and weaknesses. And this is key. If you understand your weakness is in, some area of the things that you've been studying, then you know to avoid that, right? That's not going to be an easy question for you. Whether it looks easy or not, you just understand yourself. And you just understand that's going to be tricky. Whereas if you know your strengths, like, oh man, I know SWOT upside, down, left and right, back of my hand. I've been studying that thing for all the different industries. I know it really well. Then go ahead and attack that first. Get that out of the way. Get credit for the points and the things you know so well, right? Get that down there so that your instructor gives you all the points you deserve. All right, next bullet point. Next slide, please. So real quick, this would be an example. 50 questions, 45 minutes. Each is worth a point. No guessing penalty. What do y'all think? Do you have any strategies? Someone come off mute. Tell me what you think. Not rocket science. Just give me simple strategies.
Answer the questions you know and you're sure of, and then save the harder ones that you have to think through for last.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Shikita, is that right?
Shakita, but it's fine.
Shakita. Absolutely, Shakita. That is correct. Right? Go with what you know. Answer the easy questions. Anybody else? Come on now. Anybody else? Jump on in. The water is warm. There's no wrong answers.
Keep your mind open as you read the test items.
That's correct. Yeah, keep your mind open. You might get jogged. Your memory may be jogged, right, Malia?
Yes.
Anyone else? Other things to know, other things to think about. Quick math, right? Quick math says I got less than a minute per question, right? So the number of minutes divided by the number of questions, I have 45 over 50. I have less than 1 minute per question. So that means that's what I'm going to be timing myself on, right? And it doesn't mean you got to think about it every question. Like after the 10 questions, you go, okay, am I at 8 minutes or am I at 15 minutes? That's more like what it is. Am I on pace or am I off pace? That's kind of what you need to pay attention to. Great. And no guessing penalty. So what do you think in the last 2 minutes I ought to be doing? That's right. Guessing every question, right? Put an answer in there. All right. For the interest of time, let's skip over scenario 2 and let's move on. We can go to the next slide. So, all right. So let's go back one. Sorry. Back one, please. Strategy number 1 for interpreting questions. Let's talk about that. So you're going to read it twice if you need to, and you're going to ask yourself, what topics in class or in my textbook or in my readings is this about? And if you read it again, you say, okay, let me dig deeper. What specifically within that topic is a subtopic that this is about. Try to put it in your own words and try to retrieve the data from your own mind as to what you know about it. Next slide, please. The second thing is to circle or underline keywords, right? Define them if you don't know what they are. Be careful of these all, always, never type things because those tend to be incorrect. And more moderate words like few, often, usually, some, if those words show up in the question, or excuse me, in the answer, those tend to be the right answers. Next slide.
So before we go to the next slide, I'm gonna go, but I see some questions in the chat.
Absolutely.
Well, it looks like two students are talking, but a student has a patho class this semester online, and she wanted to know, are students able to skip questions and then go back? And then Ms. Jones replied, there should be a flag there to remind you to go back to the questions in the upper right-hand corner. But those were some questions that I just wanted to put. I know you can't see the chat, Dr. Powell, but I just wanted to iterate that.
Yeah, and the flag strategy is great. What that means is what I recommend and how you use the flag strategy is, and it's going to be typical if you have your test on Canvas, which is probably 90% of you. You're going to want to do this. You're going to go through and you're answering the question if it's easy. If it's medium or hard, you flag it. Question 4, easy, I answer it. I spend the 50 seconds, the minute to do it, to use our example. Question 5, oh, that talks about that hard thing that I don't understand. I never did understand microeconomics. It's talking about this thing about GDP. Flag it. Question 6, oh, that's easy. That's SWOT. I know SWOT up and down. I answer 6. Number like that. Do you see how I'm setting it up? So I'm flagging things that are going to be hard for me while spending the time to answer things that are easy. And I'm going through my test in that fashion. The result of that is at the end of it, I have X amount of time, whatever time that is, to do all the hard questions that I flagged and skipped. Then all I have to do is go back to my flagged items and just go through them and figure out which one is the next easiest to do. And then if I run out of time, no problem. I gave my professor every opportunity to give me points. I only skip the ones that are hard, and I'm probably going to get them wrong anyway. So it doesn't really matter, right? I'm almost at the guessing stage for those anyway. All right, that's a side note to answer your question. Let's jump back into the slide set. Number 3 is to understand the accept question. This is super important. Anybody see the word accept in a question and you got stumped because of the accept? Anyone want to admit to that? So here's the thing. Let's jump to the third bullet point. If they say that something like all of the following are present in ABC, except, that's another way of saying which one of the following answer choices is absent from ABC. You can approach it either way. I tend to like to do it the first way. Let me give you an example. All of the following are present in the leg. I'm keeping it super easy. Except, and they have answer choice A, the ankle, B, the knee, C, the foot, D, the head, E, the thigh, right? So again, it's super easy, but the best way I think to do it is to see what is in fact present in the leg. And if it is present, I cross it off. So I cross off A, I cross off B, I cross off C, I cross off E. The only one left is D, the head. Now, the opposite way to do it, and the way some people get flustered or get caught, is trying to go with the whole, well, let me flip it over and go, well, which one of these is absent? And then I have to go, well, is the foot absent from the leg? And I'm like, oh, wait a second, foot? No, it's not absent. Okay. So if it's not absent, then shoot, what do I do? What am I doing? Am I circling it? What am I doing? You see how you can get caught? So be careful of doing the whole, well, that's easy. It just means there's only one thing that's absent. That can really mess you up. I like to do the cross-off method or process of elimination method, where I get rid of all the things that are indeed present. Then the only thing left is the exception, and that's the right answer. All right, let's move on. This is another strategy, priming the pump. Does it always work? No. Does it sometimes work? Yes. So use it when you feel like it could help you. Sometimes it's good to read the answers first because it gives you hints on what could be the right answer. The other thing that's good is sometimes reading the question stem. Why is that? Because it then gives you a clear target on what you're aiming for before you start going into this big old paragraph that's full of complex ideas and details that you're not sure what is important versus unimportant. Reading the question stem tells you, look for this. Next slide. Strategy number 5. Oh, there are no more strategies. That's it. There's only 4 strategies. Easy peasy. Let's talk about strategies for deciding on answers. Let's go to the next slide. So now you've gotten to the point where you've read the prompt, you've read the question stem, you've glanced at the answers, you're trying to figure out what to do. Like I said before, work on eliminating wrong things rather than always trying to look for the right things. You know, logic and common sense can take place. It may not be that an answer choice is relevant to the topic at hand. It may be that it is relevant to the topic at hand, but not to the subtopic, right? That's where we talked about drilling down. And again, I'm relying on my massive amount of time that I spent studying and preparing for this test. Next question, or next slide, rather. I sound like a lawyer. Next question, please. Strategy number 2 is Captain America time. We're going to target this thing. And how are we going to do it? We're going to use the cover up strategy, also known as the prediction strategy. I really love this strategy. Maybe this should be strategy number 1. Making a mental note to switch this thing up because this is so good. I need you all to wake up and pay attention to this one thing. You cover up the answer choices and then you create out of your own head your own answer to the question before looking at the answer choices. And then after you've done that, then you pull your hand back, you uncover, and you find the answer that matches best. Why is this helpful? Well, how many times have we looked at 5 answer choices and just been flustered, right? This is hour number 2, and we are tired as anything. And our brain is starting to not function as well. And we're stressing. And the words are all starting to sound the same. Well, when that happens, use the cover-up strategy because you don't have to read 5 answer choices. You just have to read the question and come up with your best guess, right? Your best guesstimate, and then pick the one that's most similar to that. Next slide, please. Another strategy is the true-false label strategy. For every answer choice, now, granted, this takes some time because for every answer choice, you're going to recreate a statement that you can then test whether it is true or false. For example, the head is part of the leg, true or false. So I made a statement using my own words, and then I identify if it's true or false. No, that's false. Okay, that's the accept. Let me circle that as the right answer. That is definitely the accept, right? So again, you're going to use your own words and you're going to find the thing that breaks the pattern, right? So again, if you're getting tired, if you're getting confused, I say the bunch of statements. The foot is part of the leg. The ankle is part of the leg. The knee is part of the leg. The head is part of the leg. Which one stands out? Which one breaks the pattern? The head. You get my drift? So these are techniques to get you there when you're not at 100%, when you're in hour number 4 out of a 5-hour test. Next slide, please. Let's skip that and go to number 6, or next slide, rather. So when you're given something like all of the above or none of the above, just realize that if you're able to find an example that proves that incorrect, all of those things are incorrect, right? Because I gave you an example of how it is. Therefore, all of the above cannot be true, or none of the above cannot be true. So what I'm saying is you just have to disprove it once to show that these are not true. All right, these are very technical, very detailed analysis. If you didn't follow me on that one, don't worry. You're not missing much. Let's go on to the next strategy and the next slide. All right, so again, be alert to these terms, right? If they don't fit You got to say why. I'm using my extremely simple, not rocket science example of the leg. If the head doesn't fit all the other ones, is it for a good reason? Is it because it's the right answer? Or a bad reason because it's the wrong answer, right? So again, if it's not fitting with all the others, that's going to tell you something. Also notice if it's relevant. Is the head relevant to the leg? Not really. So it stands out. So in an except question type, it's going to be the right answer. Next slide, please. All right, we're getting into the weeds here. We're diving deep. You want to test taking strategies? You're getting it. Here we go. We're diving deep. Look for similar choices, because if they're super similar, they may both be incorrect, right? So if you got like synonyms, right? Gargantuan and enormous. They're just trying to give you fancy words, but they both mean the same thing. So that means answer choice A and answer choice E are both wrong, because if one is right, they both can't be right. So if you're trying to fill, for example, the definition of a word in a question, one is gargantuan A, one is enormous E, and then you've got petite B, you've got whatever, astronomical C, then obviously A, C, and E are all wrong because they're all synonyms, right? They can't all be right. There's only one right answer. Look at opposite choices, because if neither feels right, they both might be red herrings, meaning things to draw you away from the right answer. Are they always that way? No, but I'm trying to give you the vast majority of the time. Here's a good one. Number 3. Look for things of just one or two little words that distinguish it from the others. And then ask yourself, why did the instructor do that? Is A better or is B better? Because it's probably going to be one of those two. Not always, right? Always rely on the work you did, always rely on your preparation. But oftentimes, if something's just a little bit different from another answer choice, it's because they're trying to, I don't want to say trick you, they are trying to have you prove to them that you understand the subtle differences between A and B. Finally, assess the meaning of keywords. You best know all those keywords. You best know what SWOT means. You best know, what that GDP stands for and what all it breaks down into. Also pay attention to keywords in the question. Most, least, closest, farthest, right? These all give you clues on where on the spectrum you're supposed to answer, because you always need to answer the question stated, not the question in your head. All right, say you've narrowed it down to 2 things and you're agonizing, right? Anybody been there? Man, I've been there so many times. How do I get one over the other? Well, always look for, do they use the terminology right? All those key words we talked about. Does it offer a little bit more detail that is also true? Does it contain no errors? Because the wrong answer might have a slight error in it. Can you reword them? Use your own words to try the true-false statement where you say it in your own words and you say, is that true or is that false? And then finally, always go with what I think best answers the question. The question as stated, not the question I think I want to answer or I think my instructor wants me to answer. Next slide, please. Finally, oh man, I'm just about to give up. I just simply don't know. If you don't know, you should know pretty quickly. You should be marking these and coming back to it later, like we've talked about earlier. Mark it quickly. Don't linger and spend 5 minutes and then go, yeah, I had no chance on this. Then why'd you spend 5 minutes on it? Use prior knowledge. Try to eliminate as many of the answers as possible. And then, of course, try not to leave things blank. Even if you just get rid of one bad answer choice, you have now given yourself a probabilistic advantage in possibly getting the answer right. Next slide, please. And don't change your answers. Just not a good idea. 75% of the time, the data shows you're right on your first answer. Stick with your guns and only do the strategies we've talked about. Next slide, please. Guys, we made it. And we hit our hour-long mark. So I'm assuming we have a couple of fudge factor minutes. If not, let me know, Ms. Seegers. But I'm available for questions if anyone has any. Do we have time, Ms. Seegers?
Well, it is 7:30. We did put that it was going to go from 6:30 to 7:30. But, if anybody has any questions, you can go ahead and go forward and we'll stay back a little while longer. We got somebody put in the chat, and Sharon said, great information. Thank you. Thank you so much for attending. If you guys did not get a chance to fill out that Google form link, I will, because you registered, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just email you the Google form link and you just, quickly take that link at the same time. Let's see, changing my answer is always a big no-no, but I do it out of anxiety. So somebody said changing their answer is a big no-no, but they do it out of anxiety. Somebody even said it was a lot to digest.
I
Um,
know.
it says I
We
was
got the video, right, Miss Seegers? We got the video.
right.
Watch it
So
again.
yeah, we recorded this. So I'm also going to send this to the students as well so that you can have this information to go back. Yep, great information, but yes, it was a lot to take in. Yes,
If you don't mind, if you could just remove the PowerPoint real quick, and I'll just
sure.
address that really quickly. So, about it being a lot of information, guess what? Welcome to grad school. So this is grad school. This hour was grad school. We didn't do undergrad test prep. We did graduate school level test prep. So just like all your other classes, go back and rewatch this, dissect it, take notes, and utilize them piece by piece. This is not a one and done. Come on back, rewatch it, right? You can learn a lot, just like you go back to your professor's lecture notes. Come back to this as well.
Yep. Please come back. All right. But I don't think we have any questions. A lot of people are saying thank you. People are heading out. So I just want to say, Dr. Powell, thank you so much for this refreshing information. I thought that I learned a lot too, just about, mapping it out, using the math, looking at questions and making sure that I have enough time to answer these questions. And even covering up answers and just process of elimination. So I thought that this was really helpful for me, and I know that this was helpful for our doctoral and graduate students as well. And again, students, this is recorded, so I will send this out so you'll have something to go back to look at, and also be sure to be on the lookout for the email about completing, just how this session really helped you all, and you can add any comments to in that Google form. All right. All right, Dr. Powell, thank you so much. Thank you, students. We are here to help you. So if you have any questions, please contact me at any time. Adios.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye.